Welcome to episode 14 of Connecting Clarkston. We're very excited. Katie and I are sitting here talking with Paul Angelini from Wiztech and many other things.
Yeah.
Yes.
A long history of many interesting things. Thanks for coming to chat with us today.
It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, we're excited to get to know you and understand what you're up to and learn a little bit about cybersecurity. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yes.
But we'd like to start to understand what your connection is to our town here, to Clarkston, and are you from here? Did you end up here? You know, how did you get here?
Sure, we could start there. So I was born and raised, technically born in Rochester. Moved here when I was 4, and our family got a home, built a home off of, where Bridge Lake becomes Holcomb, past Dixie, off a little subdivision called Autumn Glow. So I lived there.
Where Springfield Plains Elementary is, like across the street from there?
It's up you keep going past like where Dixie and Holcomb intersect there, you know?
Oh,
and
okay.
then it like goes from paved road to dirt road at
Gotcha.
Rabbit Lake Road. So,
Yes.
so I grew up kind of in the country, and we didn't really spend a lot of time in town growing up. You know, we're kind of kept to ourselves. You know, so it was like in my late teens when I started to kind of explore Clarkston. I was like, this is such a cool town here. You know?
Yeah.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings:
Okay.
an older brother, younger brother, and then a sister. So I'm
Okay.
kind of the middle child before she showed up. So. Yeah.
Are they all? I know they don't live here, all of them. Do any of them remain in Michigan?
Yeah, so my older brother lives in Grand Blanc with his wife and my 2 nephews, and then my younger brother and my sister moved down to Virginia. So my sister just kind of recently went down there, down with her fiance and her little kiddo.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So you guys grew up out there a little bit in the country. Are you still out there on the family land? Are you back in town?
No, so my mom sold her house a couple years ago. She moved down to Virginia, so it was kind of a exodus. My younger brother
Wow.
got married in 2016 and
Okay.
moved down there with his sweetheart, and my mom joined down there a couple years ago. So it's kind of
Now it's
so
just
half
you?
the family is kind of
Okay.
it's like my older brother, my dad, and myself are all Michiganders here. So
Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, so Clarkston's always been really significant in my life. Like it was, like I said, more in my teenage years when I started to kind of explore the city, and I was like, this is such a cool place. I didn't know this is here. I'm like, because I grew up I went to Holly, you know?
Okay.
We're right on that invisible
Yep.
borderline between Clarkston and Holly. So next door was Clarkston, that was the Holly. So I spent a ton of time in Holly growing up as a kid. Yeah, and then I discovered the farmer's market in 2009, and that's when like things really started to open up for me. That was back when it was down off of Depot, and it was
Yeah.
such a idyllic.
Yes.
It was like a magical scene. It was like right along the
Yeah.
water. It was just
It was.
fantastic.
I wonder why that moved.
I don't know the whole
Kind of
story.
it's kind of a
don't
long
know.
history, but
Yeah.
yeah,
It just made more sense to go to the Renaissance.
I think so.
parking lot?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I still miss the old location.
I can't believe it
kind
was
of
that
Yeah.
long ago, though. Okay.
pined for it.
Yeah. What was your connection to the farmers market? You just like to go, or were you?
Yeah,
what
so
were you doing there?
my younger brother and I, we have like a deep background in all things kind of ecology and gardening and regenerative ag and these kind of things. So when we found out there's a farmer's like, we got to check this out. And then we found out it was downtown there in the park, and it was like, this is sweet. So we were just like totally hooked, and we were going there like every Saturday, and we started making friends with the vendors. And then actually it wasn't too long after that we had kind of joined forces with some friends that we were doing kind of some regenerative ag stuff with, you know. We set up a booth and we're selling some produce there, and then
Nice.
I ended up branching off and I did a million different things. I sold everything from like, organic ice cream and yogurt and worm castings, and then I started selling mushroom kits and mushroom logs and
Wow.
a million different things under the sun. So
Literally under the sun.
yeah.
So how did you go from that to IT? I don't see the bridge.
Yeah, I know, it's not really linear.
Yeah.
So IT has always kind of been a part of my life since I was really young. I was preteens for sure, maybe say 7 or 8 or so when I first got introduced to computers, maybe even younger. My late grandparents, they had a nice little home in Rochester, and in their basement they had some really cool old, DOS-based computers with the green text on the screen, and being a curious kind of kid that I was, I just decided to kind of check the stuff out. And my grandpa kind of showed me some of the stuff on there, and I kind of quickly taught myself a lot of things with regards to like the DOS stuff. That was back when you had to really know computers. Like you actually had to like
Commodore
code.
64 and all that stuff.
kind of. I mean, in that
not
general
that-
era,
not that
I
far
never
back.
really messed around the Commodore 64, but this was like, old Windows, so
Okay.
you had to know the key commands, you had to know what you were doing,
Yeah.
and then over the years, just computers just kind of were a part of my life, So it was, I think, around like maybe 9 or 10 when our family got the first computer. It's an old Packard Bell 386 running Windows 3.1 to give you kind of, for those who know what that is,
Okay.
it's pretty old school stuff, but that was
Yeah.
like early Windows, and without the help of dial-up internet or reading the manual, I just kind of dived in and taught myself everything. So I kind of took sort of my understanding of DOS, and that kind of transferred over, because you still had to use a lot of those commands to play games and these kind of things. This is back in the day when you had, your little hard disk, they call it a floppy disk. It was
Floppy,
really,
yeah.
And then the floppy disk is the big one.
Yeah,
the 8.5
it's very
inch.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It was confusing.
Yeah. So very quickly I became the family computer guy. I ended up teaching my whole family how to use the computer, and again, this is pre-internet. Like, we didn't have dial-up till like years after that. And
Wow.
then we got AOL, and that was the game changer. So that's kind of the motif. I always was like the family tech guy, and then I'm kind of coaching my family with tech stuff. Like my grandfather needed help with learning his computer, so I learned a lot about being patient with elderly people and how to teach them IT. And then like my other brother wanted to get a computer, so I was teaching him some things on his new computer he got. So this has kind of been this theme throughout my life, as being the family nerd, so to speak.
You're like a
Yeah.
multi-passionate. You just have
Yeah.
lots of different things
Yes.
that you,
Yeah, IT is
heard that
word.
one of many things, for
Okay.
sure.
Multi-passionate.
Isn't
That's a
it?
good
I know.
word.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
heard it recently. I felt like this was the
I
right
like
time to
that.
use it.
That is
There
a
you go.
great
Should
word.
put it in your hashtag in the show here today.
Yeah,
Hashtag multi-passionate.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I like that. So when did it become a business? I mean, I know helping your family is great and all, but then you obviously formalized
Is there
it.
schooling
Yeah.
that happens?
Yeah,
Like,
like-
how do
No,
you,
actually,
okay.
so I'm entirely self-taught with
Wow.
really all my skill sets.
Okay.
I just have a passion for learning, and I'm just joy kind of figuring things out and tinkering with things. So it was in around 2012 that I started Wiztech as a side hustle. That's kind of when I came up with the name. I was like, I got these skills. Like, I should really just put them to use. Like, at that time, I was working at Rudy's Market, which I love it. I miss that place. so much.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great guys,
Yeah.
great people. So I started Wiztech as a side hustle. So you give out cards, people, they're coming through in line and
Nice.
trying to be
Here's
an
your
active
receipt.
marketer. And actually, it's funny. I gave out like 400 or 500 cards, and I think I got like 2 or 3 customers out of that. And,
wow.
and some of those people are actually like my friends now.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, including one of my local buddies, someone you actually might consider having the show, Roger Bailey. He's a really cool guy. He used to work for Ferrari back in the day and lived overseas. He was building engines for Ferrari for the race cars. And
Oh my
Wow,
God.
that's
really cool guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was he the one of the ones that you gave your card
Yeah,
to?
yeah, and he just
no
he was just
kidding.
he became he was a
Wow.
customer, and then he became a friend, And now
So
he's
that was
one of
like
my-
2012-ish. Is that what
Yeah,
you were
that's
saying?
kind of when I started as like sort of a side hustle, and I've done a million different things under the sun as far as occupations. I've worked in trades and these kind of things, and it was in 2018 I started to make the pivot, and 2019 I just decided to go full time with Wiztech, and it was actually around 2018 when I met Brandon Still, who you had on here recently.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine, and found out about the co-working space. I always used to see him at Honcho. We just chat, and
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I know you're an entrepreneur, man. Like, we should. Like, it was actually started with what do you call that? Blanking on the name right now. That'll come to me in a minute here. It's like a group where you get together and you talk about
Network?
business and.
Social circle?
Way before that,
No.
actually.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It'll come to me in a minute, but
Okay.
that was kind of our connection. So then, he was like, you should consider working here. I was like, it's a good idea.
That's
you know?
actually how I saw you the first time. Was I went in and like was trying out the
Yeah.
co-working space, and you were in there working.
Okay,
And
okay.
I feel
I might
like
have
there
seen you
should
then
be
back
some
in the
sort
day.
of like you set out a sign or something that
Oh,
says
who
what
you
you're
are.
building. Yes, because
Yeah.
I was like sitting there and I was like, who is this guy? He looks so interesting. Someday I'm gonna start a podcast and he'll have to come on.
We'll be on it.
It was destiny. The seeds were planted.
I know, but I was going to ask you if
Yeah.
you work in there frequently. That's like your home base.
That is my home base, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, like, I kind of set up shop, and it was like early 2019. had a desk downstairs, and that's what I was kind of operating the business from. And then it was like in 2020 is when I got a private office there, and so I've been kind of operating out of there ever since. So there's 5 private offices upstairs, so I've got one of those.
Okay.
I've got a perfect street view. I can see
Yeah.
parking lot, I see Main
Amazing.
Street, so I can see when my customers are
nice.
coming in. I can go downstairs and meet
When,
them.
just a side question about that.
Sure.
Are you able to access that at any time, or are there certain
Yes.
hours?
That's one of the great things about that co-working space is when you become a member, whether that's like a hot desk or a dedicated desk or have an office, you have 24-hour access. You get your own unique PIN, so I could drop in anytime. Like, so like can't sleep one night and I want to go and knock out some work, I can roll in there at 3 a.m.
I
and
didn't know that there was a
No.
pin, but I didn't realize it was your own pin. Because I always
Yes.
wonder, every month do they change it? How does that happen? Oh, that makes sense. If
Yep.
that's
So everybody
yours.
gets a unique PIN, and
Okay.
yeah, so it's great. It's it's super helpful because I pulled a lot of late nights there,
I
like
bet.
working till like midnight.
Well, and
and-
it's also nice to be able to, just, if you don't need to be somewhere at any certain time, like if inspirations, hits at 2 in the morning, you can go and do your thing,
Yeah,
and
totally.
that's really cool. What all do you offer? Like, what does Wiztech do completely?
Sure.
Like,
Yeah. So Wiztech provides a whole suite of professional IT services primarily for residential, but also small business as well. So a lot of break fix computer repairs. So that's like broken screens on I do a lot of Macs and Windows. I speak fluent Mac and Windows, so it's screen replacements. It's keyboard replacements on laptops. It's I can replace components I can upgrade things like RAM, I can upgrade disks and do data recovery, data backup. I do a ton of data recovery, catastrophic and otherwise. And I also do a lot of cloning of disks too. So if someone wants to kind of have everything they have on their current computer and clone it over to the new one, so it's sort of it's kind of reincarnated into the new machine.
Yeah. Is that the term, cloning? Is that what
Cloning
it
is the term, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yep,
okay.
Yep,
Didn't know that.
Just cloning. Yeah.
And I know I've seen you doing a lot of cybersecurity talks recently.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sure, yeah. So so that is a new branch of Wiztech called Wiztech Cyber. And Wiztech Cyber is focused on delivering enterprise level cybersecurity services for the home user. For so many years, home users have been overlooked for cybersecurity. And you've got a ton of companies that have been in the game for a long time, like Norton and McAfee and a whole bunch of other ones. There's millions of them out there now.
Yeah.
But nobody's really providing a focused set of cybersecurity services to help address the growing needs of the cybersecurity world today. There's, as we call it in the IT world, the threat landscape. You have these threat actors, the bad guys that are on their computers, writing malicious code, do key logging where they can track your keystrokes and get sensitive information like your banking and other information like that. All kinds of crazy stuff, and there's websites that are infected where you can just simply visiting the website, you can get hit with this malware that's installed silently. You have no clue it's there, and unless you have a really good endpoint security tool to detect that, you could be at risk of, basically having your information being disclosed to a third party, and you have no clue what they're doing with it. That could end up on the dark web and being sold, or it could be used to get into your bank accounts, these kind of things. So Wiztech Cyber was developed in response to this growing threat landscape to help address these needs and deliver these cybersecurity solutions to home users, which really need them. So we had our first talk on August 12th, and it was great. We had a full house, and we had a ton of great people there. Asked a lot of really good questions, and it's a very engaging talk.
Yeah.
And so we're doing our next one this month here, September 20th, on a Wednesday, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And we'll have some snacks and refreshments to tide you over while you're diving into the cyber
Do you
world.
have dates out further, or is that just the next one that
That's
you
the
know
next
of?
one.
Okay.
We'll be doing one very likely in October. I just have
Okay.
to coordinate with my team on scenes here to
Okay.
get that date set up. But I'll keep you posted on the next one.
Your team, like, how big is your team? Who's
It's
working
basically
with
just
you?
me and a silent partner.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You are Wiztech, like you're doing the work.
I am Wiztech,
You
yes.
are
yep.
it, okay.
I am the guy who comes to your home to help take the
Okay.
SH out of the IT. So.
Yeah, so you're busy.
Oh, that's such a
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
tagline.
Wait, say it again. Say it again. I
We
missed
take
it.
the SH out of IT. That's what we do.
Perfect.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
Gosh,
Yeah.
do you have that like
That's really good.
copyrighted
Yes,
or whatever
yeah,
you do
yeah,
with
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Smart.
that's amazing.
Yes.
That is really
Yes,
smart.
yes.
So, I mean, from just like, do, I'm on the computer, la la, like, it doesn't seem, I hear about all these things all the time, but it seems so far away, it doesn't seem real in some ways, because it's like, how do you know what is all happening? You
Well,
talk
and I'm
about
like,
these threats,
what
like,
is the dark web?
yeah.
Well, okay,
Like, we're very basic. Back us up.
Sure. Let's let's keep it kind of high level.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's going on in the world with cybersecurity. So
Sure.
you've got an industry it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's slated to get even bigger now, like triple its annual revenue. You know, you have these, like for instance, like in India, you have these call centers, like these scammers, where they do like these phishing emails, you know, or they
Yes.
set up these scam emails where, and they'll get legit offices and they'll look like ordinary business people, like at their little call centers and stuff, and those are the kind of things you would get, like the email from Amazon. It looks really similar. It's got a lot of things that make it look convincing. And
I get them all the time.
Yeah, you could. Yeah,
actually,
you could turn. You could be in a rush and not know any better, and click on this link, and suddenly
Okay.
you're like, oh, your computer's infected, and you got to call this number. You know.
Okay.
That's one aspect of the scammer side, but then you've got, you know, what we call malware. So malware is just any kind of malicious software that could be things that are found on websites. They could be things that you could be downloading from websites. It could be bad files, these kind of things. There's a whole bunch of ways you can get your computer compromised. There's crypto locking, or that's like ransomware. You know, where someone could, you could stumble upon a website that has this malicious script inside of it, which when you get on the website, suddenly your whole screen's taken over, and you're actually like legitimately screwed at that point. You have basically this cyber captor who's holding all your information ransom, and you have to pay over this bounty. Usually it's through cryptocurrency, just to make it untraceable. It's not as hefty as like big companies pay out, because big companies pay like in the high millions or more. You know,
my gosh.
For the ransom.
for ransom, yeah. But it's still a big pain. You don't want to be caught with that.
Are there actual people? So you talk about these cyber bullies. Are they AI programs? Like, are there actual people in these offices or wherever?
So there's a variety of things. So on the scammer side, you have like people that are on site that are running these scam centers, and they're basically just sending out these funky emails to make look like your computer's been infected, or maybe they have like these little pop-ups in websites that give you this scary looking message. If you don't know any better, you're like, my computer's screwed. I got to call this number.
Yeah.
You know, and that's happened to so many of my customers. I've lost count of how many people have been had, and they've gone and they've. It's unfortunate, but they've gone through all this long process. They let someone remotely access their computer for hours while they're trying to fix the problem, and there's really no problem to be addressed other than this thief that's trying to get in your machine now. But as far as the other side of things, like you have people who write malicious code that understand what they're doing, but now cyber crime has become a commoditized business, where it's what we call it like CAS, CAAS, cybercrime as a service, where
like
you can actually
SaaS,
pay,
but-
exactly,
Yeah.
SaaS and this kind of things. So you can actually pay to get the bad stuff and the bad software to deploy onto people's machines. Whereas before, it was very cost prohibitive to get this kind of stuff if you didn't understand how to write code and all these kind of things. So now you have a service where you can actually pay a relatively nominal fee. It's in the thousands, maybe $6,000 as opposed to $60,000, and you can deploy things like ransomware. You can deploy other forms of malware on people's machines. So you got a lot of people in like kind of war-torn countries and these kind of nation states where there's not really robust prospects for, like careers and these kind of things like we have in America. So a lot of people turn to cybercrime because there's a lot of opportunities to be had. You can make a ton of money,
And then there's just no like legal consequence. There's no.
It's kind of gray,
Okay.
there is there's some great people on YouTube that are doing kind of God's work in the cyber world, like helping to go after these bad guys. I think one of the guys is Robert Browning, some dude in the UK. He's brilliant, and he'll go like he's a hacker, who we call like a white hat. You have white hat, you have red hat, and black hat. The black hat are kind of the
Is
bad
this like
guys that are
black
doing
belt?
like sort of the
It's like it reminds me of the black belt. Like,
yeah,
like the good
kinda,
guys
The,
and the bad
white hat are
guys.
kind of the good guys that like they
Yeah.
understand hacking. They're like the
Okay.
benevolent hackers, and companies will hire
Okay.
white hats to do the work, or the red hats, whatever. Like you can come in and try to do the penetration tests and systems to see if you can bypass their security, and then you can take note, all right, this is where I got stopped or I got through, or these kind of things. But this dude, he goes around and like he'll like find people who have been had by these scam centers, because he can hack into these scam centers and he can get their information. He can find these lists of people on these Excel spreadsheets, and he calls them up, say, hey, listen, this person you just called, like, do not give them, do not go and buy the gift cards they're trying to tell you to get at CVS. That's bad.
Yes.
And so he'll like talk these people through, like they're like, you know, just shocked, like, how'd you get my number? It's
Right.
like, just look, just trust me, you're gonna be safe, just
Yeah.
do exactly what I tell you to do. And then he'll go in and he'll hack these scam centers and shut them down, or he'll like try to call the police. But there's a limited degree of what someone can do remotely. You know, like they'll notify like the police in India, for instance,
Right.
and in some cases they have brought in like the police to shut the thing down. But it's a tricky thing because because now it's a service. It's a global product that anybody can tune into, and that's why cyber crime is on the rise, and it's only going to get worse. So again, Wiztech Cyber was kind of formed to help
Interesting.
protect and provide preventative measures against these things for home users.
I feel like I have so many questions.
I do
I
too.
clearly
I
should
don't know
come
where to
to
start.
your talk, which I
Yeah.
wanted to, but it was on
Right.
a Wednesday night and I couldn't
Yeah.
make it.
Yeah.
You definitely should.
But
We'll do more though.
so like everything's so cloud based that I
Right.
feel like if you just hack into my computer, isn't my stuff like I can still access my stuff on the cloud, or are they logging into my computer, hacking my cloud based information, and I'm still hosed?
It depends on how much you've been compromised, to what degree, you know.
Okay.
If someone has been able to get access into your machine, this actually is a little interesting segue here. What we call skilled and focused. This dilemma of threat actors are the bad guys, someone who could be skilled but maybe they're not focused. So they could have enough skill to maybe put together some malicious scripts to send out there as phishing emails, or they've got this, scam centers or whatever. That's like where they cast the big wide net. Then you have focus. So say like someone has identified a high net worth individual. They could use their skill, their focus, to do everything they can to compromise all of their security to get to their personal information, their banking information, these kind of things, or any other kind of personal information they can leverage against them as some form of ransom, or exploiting and using that information against them. So if someone's skilled and focused, you have a real high concern
Yeah.
there. That's like a code red,
So how, obviously if it's for a service, like CAAS or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're getting paid. The bad guys are getting paid. So
Yes.
how is it monetized to combat them? Like, I know you're obviously doing it, and
Yeah.
here in this, but at the bigger scale, what's the motivation to combat that? Like, if you're anybody out there who's like this, computer whiz, and they could make millions from the bad guys, I don't know, is it the same potential? Like, who's hiring them to combat them, I guess is my bigger question.
So who's hiring to try to address these threats?
Yeah, it feels like there's this whole team of people out there, like, getting paid to do all the bad stuff. Like, who's
Sure.
the police of
These
them?
people that are just like you
Yeah,
said,
you
doing
said this-
God's work out of the
Yeah,
goodness
yeah,
of their
yeah.
heart.
Yeah,
Like
that's-
nobody's paying them.
You have
They're just,
you have
that's what
like
I'm
people who are like
saying.
just doing
Yeah,
that
it's
to be
like
sort of like
Superman.
they're
Seems
kind of
like,
like
yeah,
archangels,
right?
funding this.
Seems like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really tough odds. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
So there's a handful of people throughout the country I could find so far that are offering a service like I've put together, but it's not something that has yet reached like a widespread kind of thing. I think part of that too is because it's just been overlooked, and no one has really. I think there's just hasn't been really a lot of thought, like an assessment made on the situation. Like, all right, we've got this problem that's growing. Like, what can we do to address this?
Yeah.
There's some providers, like internet service providers, that have services that are similar, but they're not as comprehensive. And you really need to have all these things in place to get your cybersecurity good.
Is
to get-
this like what you are doing? Is this something that in a few years you anticipate is going to be like more understood and
I hope
all
so.
over the place?
I
Yeah.
hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're doing in part with these talks. So my good friend Matt Reed, he's kind of the brains behind these talks. He's been consulting major corporations on cybersecurity and other IT matters for over 25 years, and he knows his stuff. So he's leading these talks to help provide the education, and it's presented in a manner that's it's plain speak as you can get it, because there's a lot of tech stuff you have to kind of understand, but it's to help raise the awareness, because again, this threat landscape, as we call it, is only going to increase over the years, as this cybercrime as a service becomes more widespread. It's just only going to get worse.
I'm thinking back, it was probably 15 years ago, an office that I worked for, I remember a patient came in and he was telling us, like, your internet's unprotected or something, he was using some words that I'm sure are different.
Unsecure, yeah.
Yes, and seriously, I feel like we're all like, this guy should be wearing a tin hat. Like, what is he even talking about? Nobody cares. I think that guy's like a bazillionaire. Whatever he was talking about and whatever system he had to combat that clearly was something that the entire world was going to need very soon. So I'm just wondering if you're going to be, one day we'll be looking back and we're like, oh yeah, I remember we talked to Paul. You're like, that's the hope.
That's the hope. That's
Okay.
the hope. I mean, really, it's the impetus is to help protect people, to provide people with the tools, the resources, and having resources like with software and resources with support like myself and our team to build this thing out, to help provide things that are kind of giving you that ongoing threat protection using vetted endpoint security, VPN, and
it feels like it's ever changing, and like
how do you
staying
keep up?
ahead of it seems so difficult.
It's just like everything else in technology. It is ever changing. Like literally, there's threats that are happening all the time, and thankfully we have some vetted names in the industry like Norton and things like that. And I'm not getting paid to say this, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
They have a really excellent pedigree because they're one of the progenitors of endpoint security / antivirus / anti-malware. And they have this huge team that's constantly, staying abreast of these threats. They have things set up where they can, intercept these. They can basically catch these bugs, if you will. They can identify these threats and they can update these things in real time, and give you these updates through their software. So
but they've been around for a long time too, but that was sort of before it was as such a commerce, right? Like it was before it was.
Yeah, it was more enterprise kind of focus. I mean, because if we go back in time, like when internet became mainstream, we had AOL, on our familiar "You've got mail" and all those other things. You've got mail. There wasn't really such a great risk with the bad guys. You had like back in the day what they call like the script kiddies. These are kids who were just like. Well, I don't know if I can swear on the show, but they're little craps.
There you go.
Little craps.
There you
And they were putting together these little like malicious codes that when you go to a website, for instance, they could throw like some junk on your computer and it'll make like a pop-up appear infinitely. And it's just like it's just annoying things. It wasn't really to like cause damage. It was more for like notoriety and fame and stuff, because that was back in the day when like there was like the bulletin boards, the BBS, where people would be talking on these little kind of primitive forums about all their little wins, and that was me that did that one, and
right.
It was
but
kind of
for
for like
money, right?
Yeah, it was
Which
for
is
cloud
huge,
and
that's the huge difference. These people are making money at this, so it's going to be a whole different game, right?
Right. Yeah. So so there was on that kind of the civilian level, so to speak, or the residential level. Businesses, they were definitely being targeted. So it was as the internet kind of started to mature, and we became more connected, especially as we got things like laptop technology becoming more inexpensive. These kind of things like we're a lot more connected. So there's a lot more sitting ducks, if you will, and so there was more malicious, software that was being put out there in the web, and that's kind of when we started to see, in like the late '90s and especially moving into the early 2000s stuff, more harmful stuff popping up on the web. Which kind of gave the impetus for having some endpoint security in place here. So that's kind of.
And now, all we hear about now is AI and the threat of AI and all sorts of different, industries. But I suppose, and what you're talking about, what's the impact of AI, and how do you combat that?
So AI we'll see what happens with AI. There's a lot to be discovered yet. Because if someone understands how to write malicious code, they could use AI to deploy the stuff. They could write code that's malicious. Now, like ChatGPT which is the one everybody knows about, that has a lot of like safeguards against that, that you can't like put in, bad stuff, so to speak. Now that doesn't mean to say that you couldn't slip in some malicious code and have that, be generated and have something that you could deploy then, But there's other AI out there, and there's more that'll be coming as well. So we'll see what happens as far as, the cybercrime world is concerned. There might be a lot of, we call it like emergent properties, so to speak, where things just could get kind of crazy. But right now, it's still kind of in its infancy, so to speak, for the mainstream.
Regular, person at home with their phone and their laptop, what are the top 3 things you say absolutely have to do these things? If you don't do these things, you're exposed.
Sure. So the 3 legs of cybersecurity are endpoint security, that's to say antivirus, anti-malware, a VPN, which helps protect you and keep your information, all your activity private online, even against governments and these kind of things. And then you need multi-factor authentication. So I'm sure you've been on your banking websites and they say, hey, look, if you're going to use our service, you got to set this up. So you got to give us your phone number or email or some way to authenticate. That's you. I know. And you'd be amazed how many people in the C-suite are doing that same thing. Yeah. This is so annoying. I don't want to do this stuff. And then they get had because they don't have their MFA enabled. So you need those kind of 3 legs in place to get you secure. But then there's the educational piece too, because kind of a portion of that battle is being educated and having good cyber hygiene, so to speak, so you don't visit websites that are known to be rife with bad stuff. There's adult websites are they're like predominantly filled with that stuff.
What about Temu and Shein? Do you feel like...
What's that? What is that?
Temu and Shein, I'm unfamiliar
You
with
guys
that,
have never heard of those.
Is
Shein
sounds like
shopping?
anime. But
It does sound like
Oh my gosh, you
Wait,
guys.
Shein is shopping? No.
Yeah, they're both, I want to say Chinese based.
Okay.
Like they have you can buy clothes for so inexpensively. I feel like everyone shops there, like high school, I guess if you've never heard of them.
I've heard of Shein. I've heard of that one.
I mean, I think my kids are constantly wanting me to order stuff through Temu. You'll have to look it up when you get out of here.
Oh, I have heard of Shein actually. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, and I'm like, Jackson, I feel
controversy
like that's a horrible idea. I feel like I'm giving them my info, and it seems scary. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're at risk when you give your information out to
anyone,
countries that are known to be not friendly towards the U.S.
Yes.
So there is that risk, but so much of our stuff is made in China these days. I mean, all our electronics is made in China, Taiwan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things like that. So.
So I use LastPass, Password Keeper.
Yeah.
Are you pro password keepers? Anti?
For sure. Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have because you want to, especially having a vetted piece of software that's secure, because that's going to have it encrypted, so only you have access to it. You want to have that stuff stored in there, because if your browser got compromised, you run the risk of having all your passwords being available, and then they could end up on the dark web, but that's also the other side of that too, is having strong passwords too. You want to make sure you're using strong passwords. You could generate them using password generators, like Norton has one built. They have one on their website you can use. You want at least 28 characters. 30 is 30. I know it's crazy. I know, but it's the world we live in now. It's kind of like we've gone from you could leave your front door unlocked in the neighborhood and everything's cool, and then it's things kind of economy took a little bit of a turn, and suddenly maybe it's maybe I need to get a lock in there, and then it's now I need security cameras, and now we got
so the girls, I know Kennedy last year came home with something where in one of their classes they were working on strong passwords, and yes. But I was going to say, so during the pandemic, when we were schooling from home, I think passwords were probably almost the worst part of that for me. I almost total mental breakdowns. And that's when I discovered LastPass, which has been a lifesaver.
Yeah, for all the kids stuff too.
Oh yeah, everything's got 1 bazillion passwords now, and you aren't supposed to have the same one, and my gosh, if it has to be 28 to 30 characters.
It's advisable. I personally, when I'm using the overkill side of things, I like to have at least 28 or 30 characters.
Okay.
And then you have a bunch of if you use a generator, it's going to have uppercase characters, lowercase. It's going to have it's going to have special characters like numbers and underscore, ampersand, all that kind of stuff. That's just to make it more complex, so it's going to be harder for someone who can use a password cracker to crack it.
Yeah.
But again, the risks are out there, because if someone's skilled and focused, they could crack passwords. There's people who are, developing software to do these kind of attacks where you can try to breach that password to get into access.
So how do you stay up to date with all this stuff? Like, how do you educate yourself? I know you're self-educated in general, but like this, I mean, where do you go for more information about what the hackers are doing? And
so there's a bunch of different websites that have information where you can stay tuned to this kind of stuff. I believe one is CISA.org. There's a bunch of other websites where you can stay abreast. So I just tune into these kind of websites to subscribe to the newsletters, and again, because it's ever changing. It's like literally, it could be like tonight there's going to be a news story about another company that just got hacked. I think Exxon just got hacked recently with some ransomware, and it's dinner table conversation.
Was it Exxon that was before that there was that huge breach?
I think there was some major breach they had.
Just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So it sounds like you're Friday. Are they on Friday? No, Wednesday evening.
It's kind of alternates. Like we're doing a Wednesday one this time around to try to capture the evening crowd after work, and a little more relaxed pace,
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're doing these educational sessions, which is very cool, and I think we'll have to go to the next one because I have lots more questions. But what other community events have you been involved in? I know we see you about town. We were trying to figure out who you were for a minute there.
Involved with the chamber.
Actually, I just met with Kendall this morning. We had we had brunch over at.
Did you tell her you were coming here?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course she was here too. So tell us about your other community involvement and what you got going on.
Sure. Yeah. So I live in Clarkston. I moved downtown about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I love it there. It's just such a charming
downtown,
town.
you said?
Downtown.
Oh,
downtown.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, towny. All right.
Yeah, a little towny. Yeah. I was a towny before that. I mean, because like my history goes so far back. Like to jump back a little bit to that side of things, and my community involvement goes back to like again when I kind of discovered the farmers market and all this kind of stuff, and I worked for the union joints back in the day as like a handyman, so I was working behind the scenes. Doing all kinds of stuff, like we demoed the Vincetta garage and gutted the whole place, and they shoved a restaurant in there and didn't change much about it. And, so I was really active with that crew for a while. And Kurt and Ann Catala, great people, and they built this whole place up. If it weren't for Kurt, like we wouldn't have a Clarkston as we know it today. Like the union was really created the cornerstone for what became what we call Clarkston now, So hats off to Kurt for that there. If you're watching, thank you.
If you want to come on our podcast.
And talk about
Yes,
it.
you should definitely come on this
Experience.
podcast. Yeah. You could talk about the union ad works and all the other things.
Yeah. We're all for that.
But so I met a ton of people through working through the union joints, and made a bunch of friends in the community. And I worked for Reed's Market for about 4 or 5 years, and was doing everything and running registers, managing the beer and cider department, and talking to everybody, and so I got to know a ton of people because it was such a community staple, and I'd always chat with people in line there, and so I love people, so I got to make a lot of friends there. So that really helped expand my network, So in terms of like my community involvement, I'm very active in the Clarkston Chamber. I've been a member for about a little over 2 years now. So I try to attend as many of the events as I can. So I go to like try to attend as many ribbon cuttings as I can to support some of the local businesses as they're popping up here and show them support, and like and follow their pages on social media and stuff to show support, because the more we can pour into support like that, the more they're going to have visibility and traction,
Totally.
I volunteer when I can too, the chamber, like last year we had this project we were hauling a bunch of wood chips and spreading them over this little bed that you know Tom Tillier. He's living. He moved more recently to Florida with his family. Great guy, realtor.
Lots of kids.
Yeah. Awesome guy. Such a good dude. He's got a heart of gold. He built this cool little thing in the Clarkston corner. So it's like some raised beds right at Main Street in Washington.
Okay.
So we were like helping to kind of revive that. We were adding wood chips in there and stuff. And the chamber does a lot of other community events like that, like the YPN and stuff. So also last year they had like a trail restoration project through the. I forget the name of that trail, but it's kind of a hidden gem in Clarkston. It's like a little trail network that's I don't remember the name right now.
You're not talking about the safety bike path thingy.
Not the bike path, but there's these like walking trails that are down. blanking on the names
We
here.
like
right
hidden
now, but,
gems, so you'll
I
have
know.
to
It's a
give
hidden
us
gem,
the
yeah, yeah.
names.
It's super cool.
Yeah,
Not through
well,
Clintonwood.
It's not Clintonwood.
Okay.
No. It'll come to me in a moment here, but
Okay.
it's a really, really cool little place. It's got a bridge that goes over the water, and the trails actually go like right up to like I-75. There's a big fence up there, but yeah.
I'm trying to think where it is.
Brandon knows the name.
Off
Ask
of
Brandon.
Clarkston Road?
it's such an
Yeah.
interesting
Oh, yeah.
mix
Okay.
with your computers and nature.
I
like,
know.
I
Oh, yeah.
don't think, like,
Right?
Yeah.
It's surprising.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would say I kind of defy a lot of the stereotypes
Yeah,
of a
for
tech guy.
sure.
You know, I spend a ton of time in nature. You know, like I forage a lot. You know, so I'm really big
nice.
into wild food foraging. So I go out and look for like wild edible and medicinal plants. I also make cider too, not to be confused with apple juice. When I say cider, I mean hard cider. You know? If you go anywhere outside the U.S., you ask for cider, you're gonna get a glass of fermented fizzy
Yeah.
apple juice. That's cider. That's what I like to make. So actually this time of the year I'm gearing up for that because apples are coming. We have it's a bumper crop this year. I haven't seen anything like this in
Wow,
it's
nice.
been like I think 6
Where do you
years.
do
since-
this?
So I don't do it in my apartment. I wish I could. If it was
Okay.
bigger, I totally would put my press in there. But I have like a cool wooden press and grinder my younger brother and I built years ago. So got that stored at a friend's house, and I'm actually. I think this year I'm going to donate it to the Clarkston family farm.
Yeah,
And have that as
Chelsea
sort of like
O'Brien.
she's
Well, because
good
they
people.
have a press
Yeah.
there now. I think they make cider
They do,
as
yeah.
well.
But this
yeah.
one is pretty sweet.
Is it?
This one
Okay.
is the one I've got is what do you call like a rack and cloth press. So you have this little form, this little rectangular form where you put in sort of like a cheesecloth material. You dump in the pulp, fold it, stack up layers, and then you use like a little bottle jack to crank it down, and
Oh.
it's a production press. Like
Yeah.
you could do,
Oh.
like I think at one of our peak cider days years ago, we pressed like a couple hundred gallons of cider.
Oh,
wow.
So it's pretty.
Very
it's a beast.
cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the things I love doing. I love
Yeah.
making cider, and I've got 40 gallons aging in my closet from a couple years ago.
What's the ideal aging
Yeah,
time
good
for cider?
question.
So cider is a lot like wine. I mean, it really
Okay.
is
Huh.
a wine. Yeah,
Gets
'cause
better
it's-
with time.
It does actually,
Okay.
yeah.
didn't know
And
that.
a lot of it comes down to like the complexity of the fruits that you're using in there. You know, so you need a good blend of flavors to ensure that you have a good palate. You know,
Okay.
so I'm always out there like tasting apples on the roadside, and I'm just
Interesting.
like constantly like I stop my car during the fall, like, like, I gotta try this fruit, you know,
Fall,
and
eating the
knocking on
apples,
people's
yeah.
doors, like, hey, can I have the windfalls? And they're like, geez, have it all, like,
Oh,
sweet.
my
So I come out there with a tarp and shake them all on there, and yeah. So
Wow.
if you like cider, I'd be happy to share some.
We would love to try
Yeah,
your cider.
Of course.
I've got something
yeah.
actually very unique that you won't find anywhere
You guys,
else.
do you have it here? No, just kidding.
I know,
wish.
yeah.
I wish. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you have to do one of our lives because then we can drink
Yes.
the cider.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
have
Is that the one you
okay.
did with Jackie recently?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah, for
all
sure.
of the people we've had
Yeah.
on here. I just
Jack-
realized.
she's good. I
She's
love Jackie.
amazing.
She's
Oh,
such
she
a
is
sweetheart.
amazing.
Yeah, Jackie's
We-
a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Oh, is she?
Yeah,
Oh, we had
she's
such a good
awesome.
time with her.
Yeah. We used to have Wilties inside of Main Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all
Yes.
kind of started that, Brandon and Jackie and I, and
Oh, nice.
kind of took off and became its own thing now, and so
Yeah.
we sort of let it free now, and yeah.
Super cool.
God, you are like the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
It's like
I am
it's very
super
much
excited to
fits
drink
you.
cider with you.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
know.
Well,
That sounds
Perry is the thing you get. So that's the thing. Perry is like this.
Ah, you
In the
bring
UK,
it all. You bring it, and
Oh,
we
God,
will
oh,
try
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love cooking
absolutely.
too. Yeah. But so quick little tidbit on that.
Yeah.
Perry is like cider, but it's made with a very special kind of pear. So it's very bitter. It has a lot of. So it has bitter tannins, it has astringent tannins, and it's high acidity. Not something you really want to try to eat. It's the juice is so astringent. Like I remember when I was pressing the juice and I tried to sip, I could feel I could feel my throat like tightening up because it's so astringent. You know, it's like astringent things make your tissues, tonify, which actually could be a pretty sweet beauty product, like,
Right.
for the face and these kind of things.
Tonify.
Interesting.
So you want these kind of fruits to make Perry, and it takes a long. It's not a really easy beverage to make. I've found it took me like 4 years to finally nail it.
Perry is the final project. I've never heard
Perry,
of this. Perry.
yeah, Perry.
Perry, and that's
It's like
multi
cider.
wine,
It's
a-
like cider,
Okay.
but
But
it's
it
made
has
with these kind of
pear?
pears. Yeah,
I've
so it's
never
just
heard of
this
that.
kind of
You?
pear,
Wow.
Okay.
and I nailed it this time. So I
Interesting.
finally
Okay.
kegged up. I kegged this like 5-gallon batch that I'd made, and it
Yes,
was
let's
like,
try that.
this is this is like the nectar of the gods here. It's incredible.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's so good.
We're gonna
Would
have
it
to
go
try
with a
that.
barbecue?
I think it would go well.
Think
Well,
about that.
it could. I mean, let's find out.
Okay,
let's find out.
Yeah, we've got an event coming up.
Yeah.
I've got something in mind.
Yeah.
So when you were talking to Kendall this morning, are you
Yeah.
volunteering at the Taste of Clarkston?
I'll be out of town for that, so
Oh,
I
you
won't
will?
be
Okay.
volunteering for that.
okay.
Yeah.
You could
So I'll be there in spirit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Perfect.
Which
she's
is
so
the-
funny. She's like, I had my parents volunteering. She's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
ropes
Now
everybody.
Ann's trying to recruit
Yeah.
I know.
people.
Now I'm like, hey, are you going to be there?
What are you doing October 1st
Yeah,
around 6 a.m.?
I haven't volunteered yet. It's
Okay.
mainly just because I don't want to get up there early on that day. I want to
Oh, yeah.
It's early.
participate as a
Oh,
patron and not but
exactly.
next year
Next year.
I might rope. I helped out a little. I helped out like in
Yeah.
the evening and tear stuff down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned so much in like the
I
last
know.
half an hour.
Still more questions, but
A
we'll-
couple new words.
Yes.
Yes,
New
yes.
products to try.
Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yep.
I mean, and the meat of it is the cybersecurity. I think we need to go to one of your talks.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Get on the ball because I feel like all the things you mentioned that were bad, I've seen on my computer. I've definitely clicked on some things that are questionable. So
We all do it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
literally after I was running a Facebook ad campaign to promote the first talk, I had an email in my inbox, and I was like, "This looks interesting." It said it was from Meta. It was the Meta, support side. It said that my ad account had been disabled. I was like, I don't know about that. Yeah, and I was like, first went and checked Facebook, nothing, no warnings.
Yeah.
So it could be very clever things like that, where it's like
Yep.
you got these
That's
bots that are
happening a
scanning the
lot.
web that are like,
Yeah.
oh, this person's running
Yeah.
an ad, and there's their email address. This bot can scan it. So hey, they're running an ad on Facebook, and they've got their email. We'll send an email out there,
Yeah.
send a scary looking message, and you'd be amazed how many people click on this stuff. I mean, I had a customer just recently they had clicked on a link, and it opened up a scary looking page, and next thing you know, they've got this pop up. They call this number, and they're talking to somebody in some Indian call center, and they got hacked for a lot. I was like, oh.
That's so sad.
So
Maybe you've already mentioned this, but what is your email or your website?
yeah, sure. So I have two websites. So it's first one is www.wiztech.zip. That's for the main Wiztech, which is kind of everything's nestled under that. And then I have the new one, which is Wiztech Cyber, www.wiztechcyber.com.
Okay, so that's where. And then you're also on Facebook, I assume, and
Yep.
Instagram. and all that stuff.
Facebook.com/WizTizzle and Instagram.com/WizTizzle.
Nice.
Got to be playful. It can't be
Yeah.
too square and
Right.
nerdy. You know?
No.
Right. No, that's
Um,
awesome. I've
yeah.
learned a lot. But before we let you go,
Yes.
our last and final question
Yes.
is if you could recommend someone that we bring on next on our podcast. And you've mentioned a couple of people,
Yeah.
several
Yeah,
people,
yeah.
but if you had to like,
Recommendations.
yeah.
Sure. I mean, I would love for you to have my friend Roger Bailey on. He's a really cool guy,
Yeah.
very humble guy, very eccentric Brit,
Oh,
cool
fun.
guy. Yeah, he's got a
Okay.
great British accent to boot too.
We have
but-
not
Cool.
had an
No.
accent.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, and he's been living in Clarkston for like 30 plus years.
Oh,
you know?
fantastic.
Okay.
He's a great guy. There's a lot of people. I have to think about that. I mean, have you had Chelsea O'Brien on?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, she's fantastic.
She's actually the one we showed her your picture.
That's who it was.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we're
That's
like,
who it
who's
was.
Waldo?
Yes.
And
There we
she,
go.
yes,
Yeah.
yep.
That was exactly who it
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Gosh, there's so many people. Oh, Rhonda Vaughn, for sure.
yeah.
Oh,
She's
yes.
awesome. Rhonda's
Yes.
such a wonderful woman. She's doing so much great work for Clarkston and for women in business. Like she's kicking butt. big
Rhonda's
time.
been on our list, and
I
everybody
know.
keeps saying
Bump
Rhonda.
her up
and
to the
we
top.
keep- We
She's
keep saying
awesome.
she's
Like,
on the
she's
list.
like
yeah,
such
no,
a
we'll
great
have
person.
to
She's
do
like
it.
the ultimate connector. Like she
Is she?
brings so many people together, and she's
Nice.
like she's the hub.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely got to get Rhonda on here
Okay.
for sure
Okay.
too.
That's good advice.
We'll do it.
And I don't know, it's he doesn't live in Clarkston anymore, but he used to live in Clarkston. But Tom Tillier, I don't know, like if you would bring a former resident on there. He's a great guy.
Where did he move to?
He moved to Florida. I don't remember
Okay.
exactly where he's at, but he's awesome guy. Such a good dude.
Because they did a bunch of work at the farm too, at Clarkston Family Farm. His family, I thought.
I think he might have had some. I can't speak
some
to
involvement.
that for
When
sure.
I was involved, they were involved a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And then, let's see here. I mean, there's so many people. I'll think of more.
Okay.
and
That's a
I'll let
good
you know,
list.
but there's-
Yeah,
For
no,
sure.
that's great.
But get Rhonda on the list for
Yeah.
sure. Get her.
Well, and
We'll
Kurt
send her
and-
an email.
Yeah.
And
today.
Kurt and Ann, you'll hook that
Yes.
up. So.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Kurt and Ann for sure. They're
That'd
great.
be
Yeah,
cool,
they're
too.
great
Oh,
people.
it'd be great to have both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm thinking.
For sure.
Okay.
Especially given the fact that like Kurt helped create
Oh.
Clarkston to what it is today.
Absolutely.
We owe him as a debt of gratitude. So
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right.
it's my pleasure.
Well, it was
Thank
so
you for having me
great
on.
chatting
Yeah,
with
thank
you.
you so
A little
much.
scary with the cyber stuff,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
all
hey.
in all,
Look,
it's great.
We don't want to make it fear-based.
No.
It's about being informed. you
Yeah.
know?
No,
So
I think it
that.
was perfect.
it's prevention,
yeah,
So,
we appreciate that. We've
Plus we
learned
get-
some stuff here.
Prevention and parry,
Does not get better than that.
Oh my gosh, that should be
Cybersecurity
it.
cider, we could,
Yes.
this could be a new event here.
Or taking
Yes.
the
Yeah.
SH
We take the SH out of IT.
and the end on that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
This podcast is brought to you by Independence Television, located inside Clarkston High School. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Independence Television, Independence Township, or Clarkston Community Schools.